Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to math. We are on, it doesn't even say it on here. We are on lesson, I'm going to try and write it with my mouse. Lesson 3. Um, we're talking about finance and budgeting still. So, lesson 3, we go back to this budget, I guess we could call it, that Corinne has for the month of August. And it said she has recently started a part time job. She lives with her parents and does not have to pay for basic living expenses. Good for her. That's nice. Yet she knows that she is overspending. Interesting. So she looks at her August bank statement to look for clues. Now, what this lesson is about is basically taking a look at this budget and trying to figure out how she's overspending and what she can do to avoid that. I really like this general section of this finance and budgeting unit because it's all about budgeting and how you can actually make a budget to help yourself not overspend, maybe even to save a little bit of money, which would be really, really good. If any of you are working, if you're not working right now, it's still a good thing to plan for the future for you to be able to do that. So we're going to go through some questions here based on this budget and see what we can come up with. So A says, if August is a typical month, what does Corinne tend to spend her money on? Okay, so we're looking through this. We've got a number of ATM withdrawals. So she's got some cash that she spends her money. She spends money on random things, but she gets cash out. She goes to the cinema a couple times. She has like some jeans, some clothing charges. So let's see. We've got the cinema. We've got food, clothing, cell phone. We could also add cash to that list. She just generally takes some cash out and spends money that way. So that would be a good answer for that question. B says, organize Corinne's spending patterns into categories. Okay, so like a category would be, if I'm looking at the cinema here, and here, well, she clearly likes to go to the movies. So that might even be a category for her. We could call it entertainment or something. We might even just call it like cinema. But in this case, I called it entertainment. That's one category. Another category we might have, let's look at like clothing. She gets money for jeans here. Okay. We could also have a cell phone category because she spends $87.40. Maybe that's a regular payment she would have to make for her cell phone every month. And finally, food. She spends money on food for sure. So here she got money. She got a sub from Joe's Subs. I think that's referring to like sub sandwiches, not like subwoofers. So it's not a music or an entertainment budget. It's definitely a food budget. All right. C says, what other categories might be a good idea for Corinne to include? Something like transportation, because she's probably going to have to travel. And how about a miscellaneous? So, guys, there's always going to be some form of spending that comes up in your month that you do not account for. That means that it's unplanned. Maybe you get a flat tire and you have to pay for a new tire, or something happens and you just need to pay for it. You should always have kind of a miscellaneous spending category when you're making a budget, and you should save for that. So really, if I were you, I would never ever ever spend up to the last penny that you have. I would always kind of try and save something if you can. Let's continue on. D says, how much did Corinne spend on banking fees? So if we go back to her budget right here, on banking fees alone, you can see for D, I've circled some stuff. She had an ATM charge of $250, a bank machine fee of $150, another set of that, $250 and $150, and finally an account fee. So she actually had a fair amount in bank charges. It ends up being $1,675 when you add them all together, which is way too much to spend on just banking fees. Like that's, if you take that out of your budget every single month, you're actually adding up to a significant amount of money at the end of the year. So, she could definitely avoid that in a number of ways. One of the ways, because she's taking money out from an ATM that's clearly not her bank's ATM, she's getting charged for that twice. If she takes money out, you can see that she took ATM withdrawal for just $20. That's probably because it was from her bank specifically at her actual branch. So there's probably not a charge on it when you do it right at the branch itself. So that's a good way to get money out. Okay, let's go to E. E says, what was her total income for the month? Ignore the $10 that Corinne deposited in order to open the account. So her total income for the month without that extra $10. Well, we go back to this and we can see her credits here. She's added up. She's got 3 of them. I've circled them here. So 146.73, 171.06, and a whole cent for interest. She got a whole penny for interest. So her total, when you add those together, is $317.80. So she makes $317.80. And then F says, what was the total that she spent? Well, let's go and add up all of her debits. Okay. So if I actually remove this and I go here, everything here added together, all of those added together, what she spent in the month. So she spent $323.12. Oh no, that's bad news. She's clearly overspending, which means she's going to eat into that $10 that she put in at the beginning of the month to open up the bank account. And if she were to do that, and she didn't have that extra $10 a month, there's something called an overdraft fee. So if in your bank account you spend more money than you have, because sometimes that can happen. Let's say you set up like a regular bill payment and you don't have enough money to cover the bill, but they'll take the money out of your account anyways. Sometimes if you have an overdraft fee, and the bank will kind of cover that cost for you, usually up to $500 or maybe $1,000 of an overdraft, but then they charge you for it. So not only are you spending money you don't have, but then you're getting basically charged interest on it. So you never, ever, ever, ever want to overspend like that. That will be bad news. So she's overspending. And G says Corinne wants to create a budget, which is probably a good idea because she's clearly overspending. What are some changes she could make so that she has a balanced budget? Well, I came up with some ideas here. So she obviously needs to spend less money. When she takes cash out, she can do it directly from her bank. She could put a percentage of her money aside from each paycheck to save money just in case she overdrafts. So instead of being able to spend it, excuse me, yes, that was a yawn. Oh boy, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I shouldn't be yawning, but I did. If she puts money aside to spend for her paycheck, let me say that again. I got all disheveled. If she puts money aside so she can save money, she might never have a problem if she has to run into an overdraft situation. So that's a good idea. You could probably put some other ideas down there, some changes she could make so she has a balanced budget. If I asked you that question, I would just expect that you give me some reasonable answers to get a mark. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop the video right there and we will pick it up again in a second.